Forgive me, human, her words meant more than I could imagine. The crash was not in Leo Mari's professional opinion entirely his fault. Sure, he'd been daydreaming a little when the proximity alert pinged, and yes, he may have ignored 3 minor hull stress warnings during descent, but in his defense, the mission profile for Velia 7 hadn't included unexpected gravitational hiccups or electromagnetic phantoms that punch your navigation system in the teeth. He liked his missions like he liked his breakfast routine, undercooked and not on fire. Instead, he found himself plummeting through a turbulent neon blue atmosphere. Every onboard system shrieking like an angry grandmother. Flight system override. Unsuccessful. The AI chimed cheerfully. Great, now's the time to play optimistic. Leo snapped, jerking the yoke. Tell my parents I died doing what I loved. Panicking in a metal coffin, the lander groaned, as if personally offended. Then, quite rudely, it broke in two. When Leo regained consciousness, he was lying half buried in what looked like bioluminescent moss, glowing an inviting shade of mint green. The air was thick with the scent of electricity and orchids. Purple clouds hung low in the sky, moving with a sluggish deliberation. And somewhere nearby, a creature made a noise like a saxophone gargling marbles. His first thought, am I dead? Is this the weird part of heaven? His second, please tell me my nose isn't broken again. His third, which he said aloud, was, okay Leo, let's check what's still attached. Both legs present, left arm aching but intact, right arm in a romantic embrace with a piece of twisted metal. He groaned and sat up, slowly blinking at the kaleidoscope world around him. His landing pod, or what remained of it, smoked a few meters away, bent in ways no reputable engineer would endorse. He didn't get long to inspect it. Something was approaching fast. He heard it before he saw it, a light tapping on the mossy ground, rhythmic, almost musical. His mind raced with possibilities. Scavenger bots, a native life form with too many teeth, a pack of sentient bananas seeking vengeance. What stepped into view was none of those. She was tall, slender, clad in layers of alien fabric that shimmered like they couldn't decide what color they wanted to be. Her skin was pale with a metallic sheen, the faintest glimmer of light dancing beneath it like distant lightning, and her ears long, elegant, curling back like sculpted leaves. Leo blinked, then blinked again. Hi, he said, are you here to rescue me or eat me? I'd just like to emotionally prepare either way. The woman tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. Her expression hovered somewhere between amusement and caution. She said something in a musical, chiming language that made Leo think of wind through crystal. I don't suppose you speak English? He asked. She stared at him for another beat, then said in perfect, if faintly irritated English, you humans always assume you're the default setting. Leo gawked. Okay, wow, that's fair, but also, hi, I'm Leo, you're broken, she said, stepping forward with eerie grace, and kneeling beside him, she examined his leg. Oh, yep, bleeding, then pulled a small sphere from her satchel. It hovered in her palm and began emitting a high-pitched hum. Wait, is that a medical drone or an alien blender? Leo asked. The sphere zipped toward his wound, hissed, and sprayed something cold and fizzy that smelled like cinnamon and regret. He winced. Okay, definitely the blender. She didn't smile, but her eyes gleamed. My name is Sarah, she said finally. You're lucky I was nearby. Your crash site was radiating distress signals like a newborn screaming. I specialize in dramatic entrances, Leo replied, biting back another groan. And normally I prefer a little more dignity, but hey, Moss is soft. 5 stars. Sierra gave him a long look, then, without another word, she hoisted him over her shoulder as if he weighed nothing. Whoa, hey, okay, sure. Carry me like a sack of space potatoes. That's cool, Leo sputtered. Strong lady. Noted, you'll slow us down otherwise, she said flatly, and I don't want to meet what that saxophone-sounding thing was. He tilted his head back as she began walking through the strange humming forest. You heard that too? I live here. Right, pause. Does it eat people? I don't think it's tried yet. Cool, I love a mystery predator, makes a place feel like home. She ignored him as they traveled deeper into the bioluminescent wilderness. Leo caught glimpses of strange creatures flitting between trees, bursts of color and movement that didn't quite register as anything he knew. Fungi, Pulsed gently beneath their feet, the air shimmered faintly like the planet was breathing in slow motion. So what's the name of this botanical nightmare? He asked. Verlia, sir, replied. This is the seventh continent. You crashed on the southern edge. Ah yes, southern edge. Famous for its hospitality. Sierra didn't laugh, but she did say, you're very noisy. For someone who nearly died, it's a coping mechanism, Leo replied. Some people meditate, I make jokes and flirt with tall aliens carrying me through glowing forests. She didn't respond, but her grip on him tightened just a little. Leo sighed and let his head rest against her back. He wasn't sure what kind of planet Verlia was or who the strange woman really was, but one thing was clear. His life had just veered wildly off script, and for the first time in a long while he was curious where it might go. The shelter Sarah led him to was not strictly speaking a building. It looked more like someone had upended a metal beetle the size of a delivery van and hollowed it out for fun. Vines twisted over its carapace, clinging to curves and glowing faintly in hues that pulsed with some internal rhythm. There was a hatch, part organic, part tech, that sighed open with the grumpiness of something woken from a long nap. I hope this place has room service, Leo muttered as Sierra lowered him onto a spongy bed woven from what looked suspiciously like giant caterpillar silk. There's a filtration system, she replied, brushing hair out of her face with an unintentional grace that made Leo's brain reboot. That's the best you'll get. Cool, so no mini fridge. She gave him a dry look. Do you all talk this much? Only when I'm concussed, which statistically speaking is often. Sarah sighed and stepped toward a sleek console embedded in the wall. Her fingers, long with faintly bioluminescent tips, danced over a holographic interface that responded with chimes and flickers. A section of the wall shifted, revealing a chamber filled with soft light and swirling particles. She beckoned. Wait, am I about to be vaporized or healed? Leo asked, gesturing dramatically. Be honest. Healed, unfortunately. Ah. Classic bedside manner. She helped him limp into the chamber. The moment he stepped inside, it hummed to life. Warmth spread through his limbs like a sunbeam filtered through honey. He watched, dazed, as microscopic drones buzzed through the air, stitching torn skin, dissolving blood, repairing bruised tissue. It was deeply soothing and deeply unsettling. One of them winked at him. He was almost certain of it when he emerged. His leg was whole. His ribs didn't stab with every breath, and bonus, his beard had been trimmed into something stylish. He blinked, dazed. Okay, what just happened, and how do I get one of these for my apartment? Sarah didn't answer immediately. She was watching him with a strange expression. Curiosity, suspicion, mild contempt, with a side of worry. You recovered fast, she said, faster than expected. Leo grinned. I take my vitamins. You take sarcasm like a drug. Also true. She turned away and began unpacking a small crate near the corner, filled with crystalline cylinders and odd twitching tools. Leo noticed that some of the cylinders contained what looked like miniature storms, lightning and cloud held in glass. One even had a tiny floating whale no bigger than a thumb. Okay, what is that? He asked, pointing. She looked over her shoulder. Biostorage, stasis, containment for volatile systems. That one's a neural code engine built from compressed sky creature memory. Right, of course, silly me. She cracked the faintest smile, then handed him something from the crate. It looked like a fruit, except it was faintly glowing and pulsing like it had opinions. Leo examined it skeptically. Do I eat this or propose to it? You eat it slowly. And for the love of the moons, do not bite the core. What happens if I do? Your insides explode. Not so same as earth. Puffer fish. The fruit was sweet, fizzy, and mildly judgmental. As he chewed, he leaned back against the cool interior wall and let his eyes drift upward. The ceiling had transformed. It now displayed a shimmering map of the stars' galaxies, looping lazily across dark space. But something was off. Hey, that's not right, he said, frowning. That cluster's way too close to that spiral arm. And that he pointed. That star went supernova a month ago. It's gone. Sir turned slowly. You know galactic seagraphy? Leo tilted his head. It's a hobby I used to chart starfields between training flights. You can tell a lot from the arrangement of a system, movement, time, distortion, collapse patterns. Saw studied Him not blinking. That map is real-time. Leo sat forward. Then we've got a problem. He stood, legs still a bit wobbly but mostly functioning, and approached the map. He tapped an area near the edge of the display. This system here, it's wobbling pulsar irregularities like that only happen near gravitational interference. Big gravitational interference. Sir's eyes narrowed. You think the planet's orbit is shifting? I think your whole system is being pulled apart. He looked at her, suddenly serious. This planet is dying fast. For a moment, silence stretched between them like a taut string. Then Sarah nodded slowly and said, "You weren't just a passenger on that ship, were you?" "Nope, I was the pilot and the planetary analyst." Paused, then added, "Also the in-flight movie critic, but that's not relevant, sir." Turned away, packing. "Then maybe it's lucky you crashed here." "Yeah," Leo said quietly. "Real lucky, if by lucky you mean the ship broke in half and I got rescued by an alien with elf ears and a healing blender." "I told you you're welcome." He grinned. "You didn't have to carry me, you." "No." She stopped packing and looked at him with a straight face. "I considered dragging you, but you were leaking fluids." Leo chuckled, shook his head. "Well, glad to be here. Bodily fluids and all. Now can we talk about why your planet is cracking apart like a dropped snow globe?" Sarah was quiet for a long beat. Then she said, "We can, but not here. There's someone we need to see, someone who knows more than I do, and we'll need to travel through the shifting waste." Leo raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous. Is it dangerous?" "Yes, monsters may be quick." Question: why does every alien planet have a place called the shifting waste? Is there a law? Sarah gave him a sidelong glance. "It's not a name, it's a warning." "Well, then," Leo said, clapping his hands together. "Sounds like a party." He regretted saying that. Immediately they left the shelter just after Virelia's twin sons finished arguing about which one would set first. The sky swirled in shades of coral and bruised teal, and the air smelled like metal and something faintly burnt, possibly Leo's dignity, still smoldering from the previous day's crash. "Are we walking?" he asked as Sarah stepped onto a path that didn't seem to exist until her feet touched it. She didn't turn, floating, mostly floating. At her side, a disc the size of a skateboard shimmered into existence, humming low and steady. Leo blinked. "Please tell me that's a hoverboard." "Hover sled," she corrected, stepping onto it with the grace of someone who probably hadn't fallen face first into moss 24 hours ago. "Right, totally different thing," he muttered, stepping onto a second one that blinked to life beneath him. The sled responded immediately to his balance, adjusting with a smoothness that made him feel more like he was gliding on intention than on tech. They began to move forward, skimming over the glowing moss and whispering reeds, past bulbous trees that swayed independently of the wind. "So," Leo said, arms slightly out for balance, "we're headed to the shifting waste." "Sounds like a cheerful vacation spot. It was once a crystallized valley," Sarah said. Then the core tremors began. "Now it changes structure every few hours. Some days it's sand, some days stone, sometimes," she hesitated, "sometimes a liquid." Leo considered that. "So basically a terrain version of mood swings." "Got it." They rode in silence for a few minutes, the hover sleds weaving through dense flora like polite ghosts. Strain creatures occasionally poked their heads out, some with too many eyes, some with too few. One with what Leo swore was a mustache made of fireflies. At one point, a flying jellyfish the size of a boulder floated overhead, its tendrils trailing stardust. Leo waved it, flipped him off with a bioluminescent pulse. "Well, that was rude." Sarah didn't look back. "That one thinks it owns the sky. Tell it to pay rent eventually." The dense forest began to thin, giving way to rolling hills covered in glittering particles that shifted even as Leo watched. The land shimmered like a heat mirage, constantly rippling. The sled slowed, then stopped entirely at the edge. Sierra pointed. "The waste begin here." Ahead, the land was not just shifting, it was actively reinventing itself. Mountain ridges rose, shimmered, and collapsed into valleys. Stones rearranged in fractal patterns. A canyon formed, blinked, then reversed its existence like someone had hit undo on the universe. Leo stepped off the sled and stared. "That's not terrifying at all." "You'll need this," Sierra said, tossing him a small silver band. "Temporal stabilizer, keeps your body in sync with the local time distortion." Neat, Leo said, sliding it onto his wrist. Will it also keep my breakfast in my stomach? No promises. They stepped into the waist. Instantly, Leo felt everything tilt, not physically, his body remained upright, but time itself felt like it had developed a limp, his next step stretched too long. The following two short colors swapped places with sounds. He smelled the color green and tasted something like bells. Okay, he said, blinking hard, not to alarm you, but my eyes just tried to defect. Stay close, Sarah replied, and whatever you do, don't step on the white stones. Why they bite? Of course they do. They navigated through the unstable terrain, slowly avoiding pools of liquid glass and clusters of singing rocks. Leo stepped too close to a patch of mirror sand once and immediately saw an older version of himself wagging a finger at him. You should have married Elise, the reflection scolded. Leo blinked. Whoa, low blow sentient sand. Sir grabbed his arm and yanked him away before the sand could say more. Don't let them in. They prey on regret. Then this whole valley is about to get real. Chatty hours passed, though in the waste hours were a theoretical concept at best. Time behaved like a child who had just learned the word no. Leo's chronometer spun like a roulette wheel. Sir meanwhile moved with a calm certainty, her body shimmered with every step, her stabilizer humming steadily. Leo watched her when he thought she wouldn't notice, the way she studied the terrain, the quiet tension in her shoulders, the moments her gaze lingered on the sky a little too long. There was something unspoken writing beneath her calm, guilt, maybe fear. Hey, he said as they paused to rest beneath a hovering stone arch that hadn't been there a minute ago. You going to tell me why we're really going to this contact of yours? Sierra didn't answer immediately. She pulled out a canteen, handed it to him. It smelled like mango and motor oil. He drank it. There's something wrong with Verlia, she said at last, not just geological instability, something deeper. This world isn't behaving like it used to. Well, it's definitely got commitment issues, Leo said, gesturing to a hill that just turned into a whirlpool and swallowed itself. She didn't smile. Something is interfering, something artificial. Leo raised an eyebrow. Artificial, as in sabotage? Sarah met his gaze. Yes, he felt the shift then, not in the ground but in her. Her voice had changed, her posture guilt buried deep in her bones, the long years she'd spent on this lonely planet, watching her creation rust and rot and twitch back to life. She hadn't just sabotaged his mission, she'd sabotaged herself above them. The construct stirred again, massive limbs unfolding like insect wings, the size of cities. The waste responded, terrain convulsing in synchronized pulses. The obelisk flared, it's preparing to fire into the core. Sarah whispered, it'll trigger a full collapse. Leo rubbed his face. So we turn it off? It's not that simple. It never is. That's how you know it's a good story. She gestured toward the obelisk. There's a failsafe key embedded in the main node. I can access it, but only if you stabilize the energy output from the console. It'll require direct neural sync. It might hurt. I've been stung by psychic wasps. Your might hurt. Scale needs revising. They split again. Sarah ran toward the base of the obelisk, her form flickering as the construct's interference ramped up. Leo braced himself at the console. The translation glyphs jittered like caffeine-addled spiders. His stabilizer vibrated so hard it nearly jumped off his wrist. He pressed his palm to the interface. White hot cold surged up his arm. His mind stretched, then snapped back, plugged into something massive, endless. For a moment he was the obelisk. He felt the planet's pain, its dying core, the fractured crust, the ancient machine waking blind and monstrous, trying to fix a world with hands now made for war. Steady, Sierra shouted from somewhere beneath. Leo focused. He clamped down on the surging energy, filtered it through his neural net. The obelisk screamed back data, slamming into him, memories, blueprints, fail states, contingency codes. One fragment showed a younger Sierra laughing in a lab surrounded by beings who no longer existed. He held on to that laugh. The obelisk's pitch changed. I'm in, Sir yelled, pulling the core key. Now a shock wave cracked through the valley. The machine above flailed, letting out a silent howl as a vein of power was severed. Its limbs jittered, spasmed, and slowly folded inward, not retreating. Shutting down with a final lurch, the construct collapsed into the sky. Its Body broke apart into dustlight raining down across the waist like embers falling in reverse silence, returned real. Warm silence. Leo collapsed next to the obelisk chest, heaving. His brain felt like it had done 3 years of math in 20 seconds. Sarah walked over the core. Key clutched in her hand. She looked tired but lighter, like some ancient weight had finally shifted. You did it. She said. We did it, he corrected, though I get credit for not wetting myself while plugged into an ancient space obelisk. She managed a weak smile. They sat in the quiet for a long time. The waste began to settle, less chaotic now, the patterns gentler. Somewhere something green dared to grow. Leo glanced sideways at her. So what now? I'll stay, help stabilize the planet. There's still so much to fix in me, sir. Hesitated, then reached into her pack. She pulled out a small device, part transmitter, part beacon. This will signal a relay ship. Your people will come for you. Leo took it, turning it over in his hand. And if I don't want to leave? Sarah looked away. Then you'll get in trouble for going a wall again. Wouldn't be the first time. They laughed, both too tired to mean it, but it felt good anyway. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just the alien who'd saved him or the saboteur who'd nearly doomed him, but the person who trusted him, let him, and risked everything to make it right. You no, he said. You still owe me an apology. She raised an eyebrow. I said, please, fair, but you didn't mean it. With flowers and chocolate next time. There's a next time. She stood, ears twitching slightly. We just saved a planet, Leo. There's always a next time. He watched her walk into the dawn. Verlia's suns rising behind her like twin promises, and Leo Mari's astronaut Sabati. Echo monster survivor smiled. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened. Maybe it was about building something new from what remained. The end. Like she was carefully threading through a truth she didn't want to say, yet he leaned back, watched the sky flicker with lightning that never struck. You know who's behind it? Another pause. Maybe. Is it someone I know? Sarah looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then softly, please just trust me a little longer. He stared at her. The wind whispered between them like it too was waiting for the truth. Finally he said, okay, but just so we're clear, if this ends with me being vaporized by a rogue time machine or devoured by sentient regret sand, I get to haunt you. Sarah's lips twitched. That's fair. And then the ground beneath them began to sing low, rumbling, alive. Something had noticed them, and it was waking up. The sound began like a distant choir, warming up, low fractured harmonics that scraped against the edge of Leo's hearing and settled somewhere behind his eyes. The ground beneath him pulsed, not shook, not trembled, pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with a rhythm older than language. Okay, Leo whispered, either we've entered a sentient lava lamp or this valley is auditioning for a horror movie I didn't sign up for. Sierra held up a hand, motioning for silence. Her long ears twitched, slightly attuned to frequencies Leo couldn't hear. She crouched low, fingers brushing the fractured crystal ground. It responded by growing a tiny spire which tried to high-five her before collapsing into dust. We need to move, as she said quickly. Cool. Any particular reason, or are we just racing invisible doom again? There's a predator here, one that hunts by Echo. I'm sorry, Echo, that's not how sound works. Tell that to the helleth beast. It listens to your reflections and follows the shape of your fear. Leo blinked. Great, terrifying and poetic love that they ran, or rather they skidded and hover dashed across terrain that tried at every turn to fold itself into new shapes beneath them. The hover sleds re-engaged just long enough to carry them across a ravine filled with writhing vines that looked like they were arguing about politics. Leo narrowly missed being slapped by one that hissed something suspiciously like taxation is theft. Behind them the sound grew sharper. It wasn't a roar, it was worse, it was mimicry. Their own voices warped and twisted repeated their jokes and gasps in rising garbled tones. Hello, the beast echoed, voice like glass breaking underwater. Taxation is taxation. Is theft, fear. Leo ducked behind a spiked boulder, panting. That is exactly how nightmares start. Sierra crouched beside him. If it hears the full pattern of your voice, it learns your thoughts. Well, that's just rude. We have to split, throw off its rhythm. Leo stared. Split up? Have you seen any science Fiction horror movie ever. Sarah stood and whispered something into a small flickering crystal orb it burst with light, momentarily disrupting the sound field. I'll draw it. You loop around and head for the obelisk. It's straight ahead, northwest ridge. The signal node is there. The wait, we're already at the obelisk place. When were you going to tell me we were this close? I was going to tell you, she said, after we weren't being hunted by an echo monster. Reasonable. She vanished into the refracting terrain like a shadow in reverse. Leo took a deep breath and bolted in the opposite direction, ducking between shifting stone trees that moaned. When he brushed against them, he avoided pools of memory sand, leapt over a stretch of terrain that turned into liquid midstride, and ignored a crystal flower that told him quite calmly that he would never be truly loved. Save it for the therapy session, you sparkly daffodil, he muttered, climbing the final rise. There it was, the obelisk. It stood tall in the middle of a crater that hadn't been there 10 minutes ago, a towering spike of black and silver, etched with glowing sigils that shimmered like heat mirages at its base. A circular console hovered, surrounded by a field of suspended data particles, text maps, blinking coordinates, alien diagrams, all turning slowly in the air like a lazy planetarium. Leo stepped into the field. Immediately the world dimmed. The pulsing behind his eyes returned, this time in rhythm with the obelisk. It didn't speak. Not exactly, but he felt something stretch inside him, reaching gently, not unlike the polite touch of a stranger offering a handshake across time. Hey there, he said, breathless. You're prettier than my apartment's water heater, and I like that thing. Data streamed around him, forming patterns he couldn't interpret until his wristband vibrated and cast a translation filter over the nearest glyph's core. Instability sector 7, source external anomaly, identity matchite N. Army. Redacted. Oh, come on, he groaned. Redacted. Who built this? The Intergalactic Bureau of Vague Answers. He touched the console. The obelisk responded by showing him not images but impressions, a planetary core, once stable, now fragmented, strange machinery tunneling through layers of mantle, energy leeches like vines of light burrowing towards something beneath the planet. A face obscured, ears long like Sir's, eyes closed in regret, and then her voice. Please forgive me. Human. Leo staggered back. The image vanished. Sir had known she'd known more than she let on. That wasn't just guilt, he'd sensed it was involvement, complicity, maybe worse. He turned, stunned, and found her there, standing just at the edge of the obelisk's glow. Her face was unreadable. You saw it, she said. I did, he said quietly. What the hell, Sarah? She stepped forward. I didn't sabotage your mission. Not exactly. There's not really a lot of gray area between sabotage and oops. I tripped and collapsed a planetary core. Her jaw tightened. I wasn't trying to hurt you or your people. I was trying to stop something worse. Leo opened his mouth, but the earth cut him off. A new tremor shuddered through the obelisk's field, and a deep boom rolled through the valley like a warning bell from the gods of entropy. Sir's eyes widened. It's waking up again. We don't have much time. Leo clenched his fists. Then you'd better start explaining, because I don't trust people who say please forgive me before they finish the story. Above them the stars flickered, 1, 2, then a whole quadrant blinking out as if something massive had shifted position beyond the upper atmosphere. Sarah didn't look up. She looked at Leo and said, I need you to help me stop the thing I built. The wind fell silent. Even the waste seemed to pause, unsure what to do with that truth. Leo sighed. I knew it. I'm going to need so much space therapy after this. The skis cracked open, but not with thunder. It was soundless, an immense silence that pressed down on Leo's lungs and made his thoughts feel too loud. Above, a colossal shape stirred behind the dark clouds, shifting like something half asleep under a blanket of stars. He caught glimpses, gleaming edges, latticework, limbs, organic metal pulsing with dull light. The thing Sierra had built, it wasn't supposed to wake, she said, voice small beside him like she was 12 and had just broken the universe's most expensive vase. Leo stared up. What was it supposed to do? Knit planetary sweaters. She didn't answer. Her eyes were on the obelisk, which now thrummed with a low whine like a tuning fork trying to scream. It's a terraform engine, she finally said, or it was designed to repair dying worlds. I created it decades Ago, before the war, before they made me, she hesitated. Improve it, Leo didn't like. The way she said improve, they turned it into a weapon. Yes, and you didn't tell me. This sooner because I thought I could stop it alone, she said. I thought. If I just kept you away, if I misdirected your mission, if I could control the damage. Leo raised a hand, pause, back up. You sabotaged the whole mission just to keep me from reaching it, yes you know. Most people just ghost after a bad date. Sarah's expression barely twitched, but her ears drooped a little. Like a dog that knew it had chewed something expensive. Leo sighed, his head hurt, his body hurt. The laws of reality had been playing musical chairs for days now, but worst of all, he wasn't angry, not really, somewhere between falling out of the sky and dodging ego mimicking sound. Monsters, he groaned, attached. I didn't want you to get hurt, she said softly. You mean again? She nodded, and in that small silent nod Leo saw all of it, the